was Doctor Strange whitewashed? So there's been a lot of backlash against Doctor Strange, and more importantly, Tilda Swinton's character, the ancient one. Is that what they call the ancient one? It's such a good movie. But so this is how it all came about. So first and foremost, there was an email exchange, and I'll read some of it between Margaret Cho and between Tilda Swinton. Tilda Swinton approached Margaret Cho, even though she didn't know her. She really wanted to get a gauge on the conversation because she doesn't follow social media. And she wanted to make sure that she fully understood where people were coming from. Well, Tilda Swinton thought that this was a private email conversation. Margaret Cho agreed to the private email conversation, but when Margaret Cho was on comedian Bobby Lee's podcast, it all came out. So, but we only heard like little experts of what happened. So then Tilda Swinton then decided to release their full email exchange because she wanted people to see their full conversation, because it's actually a really important, really respectful from both sides conversation that I think everybody can learn from. In fact, we'll include the full link, Amir, because I'm only going to hit little parts of it because it's a long email exchange. But I think it's really important to read. So first, Tilda Swinton, the diversity debate, all strength to it, has come knocking at the door of Marvel's new movie, Doctor Strange. I'm told that you are aware of this, but since I am that extinct beast that does no social media, I'm unaware of what exactly anybody has said about any of it. I believe there are some ironies about this particular film being a target, but I'm frankly much more interested in listening than saying anything much. I would really love to hear your thoughts. And she goes on, can we keep this private? Margaret Cho says, the character you played in Doctor Strange was originally written as a Tibetan man, and so there's a frustrated population of Asian Americans who feel the role should have gone to a person of Asian descent. The larger part of the debate has to do with the whitewashing of Asian and Asian Americans in film. Our stories are told by white actors over and over again, and we feel at a loss to know how to cope with it. And then she says, anyways, I hope this helps. We can totally email and we can be private, best M. And mind you, I'm skipping parts of the emails where they're both very complimentary to one another. So this is a very respectful email exchange. And then she says the film, like any film adaptation, is a riff on the books. The ancient one may have been written as a Tibetan man in the comics, but Marvel, in a conscious effort to shake up stereotypes, wanted to avoid tired cliche. They cast Chiwetel
Ejiofor.
Thank you. As the second lead, a white Transylvanian in the books, so they shook that part up, and wrote a significant Asian character to be played by Benedict Wong. So then they added that. And then she also says with the ancient one, they wanted to avoid the stereotype of, she says, the wise old Eastern geezer Fu Manchu type in the book, wanting to switch up the gender, another diversity department, and not wanting to engage with the old dragon lady trope. They chose to write the character as being of ancient Celtic origin and offered the role to me. And then she goes on and on to say that she really wants to make sure that people understand that Marvel did try to be diverse, and she doesn't think that they deserve this unfair I guess, depiction of being whitewashed. And she also says, though, that she's not ducking the issue. It's not what I'm about. I want to move forward this conversation. And finally, Margaret Cho says, with a lot of other things, she says, I believe very much that you as an artist are about diversity and your body work shows that. But this particular case of the ancient one is just another in a long list of whitewashed Asian characters. And so you're likely to feel that heat of history, and then goes on to be quite respectful. And then Tilda Swinton says, I can't thank you enough for this. And then also mentioned that she's going to be doing a first ever half Korean, half English speaking film. And Margaret Cho writes her back. That's great. Good to hear about it. And that's how it ends until, of course, the Bobby Lee podcast. Thoughts, 5 words or less.
Strange interpretation of private.
What else is new in Hollywood?
I've seen Stranger Things.
Important conversation to have. I thought this is a great conversation. And I thought they handled it both really well, except to echo what you said. Why would Margaret Cho say this is private and then go publicly and talk about it?
Here's my theory on this. I think that, she was doing a podcast with Bobby Lee, and I know that they've known each other for a little bit. I think that they probably got comfortable in their discussion. And because there isn't a camera there, you sort of feel like you're having a private conversation with a friend. And I think that's sort of the slip up and the disconnect that I'm feeling with regards to this story. I think the emails are really important for people to read, and I hope that you take a minute to see both sides of this, because they come at it in a really respectful but critical way. But Tilda Swinton said at the very beginning, I hope this can remain private, and Margaret Cho really should have respected that.
I agree.
Usually when an email conversation is leaked, and we all have experience with this, it's usually the worst thing you could imagine.
Yeah.
But in this case, it was the best thing I could have hoped for.
Yeah.
It's two people having an open, honest discussion and saying things at the end, if you don't want to hear it, tell me to fuck off. I get it. And Tilda Swinton saying some stuff like, what is it like? I was happy to play this character that isn't a woman under 28 who's like positively bursting out of her bikini. Like, it's a really good discussion.
Right, because she's also, not only is she a woman in film, but she's also in her 50s.
55.
So, yeah, 55 years old.
She's
so
dope.
she's used to the discrimination of age, too, in Hollywood. So, yeah, it was a great conversation.
There's just, I mean, the whitewashing thing, obviously the privacy aspect is one sentiment of it. This situation of whitewashing is not as bad, I would say, because of all the other, they made a conscious effort when I actually started reading what they did and who they casted character-wise. But you look at like when Tom Cruise did The Last Samurai.
Yeah.
Ain't no damn samurai. It's like a white man from Burbank. And then you look at what was the movie last year with Gods of Exodus.
Gods
Oh,
and
Gods
Kings
of
or
Egypt.
something.
Oh,
like that.
right. Yes.
And it's like, you know, even in the Bible it said Jesus had a head of wool. Last time I checked.
Well, I got a lot of product
This is
in
more
it.
wool. You know, so
Yeah.
it's like, it's been going on for so long, and then they say, you know, or there'll be, like, there was a huge uproar with Luke Cage because Luke Cage is a black guy. And they wrote that whole cast, being an urban African-American cast for a Marvel series, that they put it on Netflix. And it's, you know, it's like, well, if it's either whitewashed, but then if they start getting diverse, then all the Donald Trump supporters are going to be mad. I mean, excuse me. All the other people are going to be mad because, you know, I want to see a white man as a superhero. Like a black man can't be a superhero.
Right.
We'd probably be the best ones anyway.
Iron Man's black now.
Is he really?
Black girl.
Oh,
like
that's
a child.
right. Yes.
Yeah. Riri Williams, she's like 15-year-old
Yeah.
MIT genius.
Right.
Oh, see?
Like the next
Yeah.
Iron. And Thor's a woman. Like, they're doing this stuff at Marvel. They're doing very conscientious things. That said, like the specific instance of the Ancient One, I get Marvel looked at that and they probably saw the Fu Manchu mustache and
Yeah.
were like, oh, wow, that is bad. We need to fix that.
It felt
But I
really
would've-
They had two
stereotypical.
options. They could do what they did, which I think is like a creative thing. And I always like putting Tilda Swinton in stuff because she's freaking awesome.
She is.
Second, though, like, this was it was an opportunity. I think it's not unfair to say it was an opportunity to be like, yes, they wrote the Ancient One to be like the stereotype. But they could have taken it as an opportunity to kind of make it a more specific, non-stereotypical invocation of a proud history of Tibet, and then
And
on
still
the other
play by
hand,
any-
just have some surprises in there that aren't things that folks who wrote, you know, this back in the day would have just like filled in the blanks. It's like,
Right.
what else do stereotypes of Asian people do?
I wouldn't have mind. You remember Big Trouble in Little China?
Loved
Yeah.
it.
I wouldn't mind Egg Shen being the ultimate man. You know, let's bring back
Messed
Egg
up
Shen.
right there.
What about
Right.
Eddie Murphy and Golden Child? Let's bring back he's the same
Right.
guy, right? That's later. Like, you know,
funny.
that one's. I feel like certain things when you try too hard to circumvent them, some things just let them be what they are.
And I do
you know,
like
people
that-
in Tibet look like that.
Right, exactly, and exactly right. And I do like that Margaret Cho said, you know, even though that Marvel took those steps, this has been going on for so long, and now with social media, and then it just goes to show with social media, with everybody having a voice, at least people are going to voice how they feel about it, and especially like this being in their minds maybe the straw that broke the camel's back, because they really saw the Ancient One as a Tibetan character, whether or not it was stereotypical or not. Like you said, they could have made choices to make that Tibetan character of Asian descent less stereotypical without casting Tilda Swinton. But I do like that they were aware too. I don't think this is as cut and dry as other films, as you stated,
Yeah.
but you have to be sensitive to that.
But I also think an important thing that we should bring up is that the reason why Tilda Swinton asked her team, or at least confirmed with her team, to release these emails was because Margaret Cho sort of misrepresented the tone of the discussion on the podcast.
She definitely did.
And that is troubling, because what they had was a really honest, open, respectful discussion. And when she was speaking with Bobby Lee about it, and I'm not sure if it's sort of, you know, when you remember things, you sort of remember, you color it in a certain way in your memory. I think that, but she says that it sort of left a bad taste in her mouth a little bit, like maybe left sort of a weird impression. And that's what she related to Bobby Lee. And I think Tilda Swinton was like, hey, wait a second, that's not the impression that I got from these emails. And it's not certainly not the impression that you gave to me, because I say at the beginning, I want to listen, and tell me to fuck off if this isn't something that I should even touch at all.
It definitely fits what you were saying earlier about hanging out with your friends. Like, sometimes I'm mad about something, or it did leave a weird taste in my mouth, and when I explain it to my friend, I'm like, I say it in a certain way, and I almost hear myself say it and go like, oh wait, it isn't coming out right, but at least I'm like getting my feelings out about it. So the words might have gotten all mixed up, and her like, it has bothered her since and that has been warped in terms of how she originally remembered it happened. I don't know,
why
but
you
like
just-
she was just talking to Bobby Lee,
Right.
and
Yeah,
Plus
but
all
this
the
also
history too. You have to understand not to excuse how she misrepresented it, but somebody that's been in the industry for this long and is so sick and tired of the whitewashing when it comes to Asian Americans or just Asian descent, she's sick and tired of it. So
There's
She's
maybe
been
another-
such an advocate for
Yeah.
misrepresented communities, whether it's the LGBT community,
Yeah.
whether it's the Asian American community. So I understand her
Right.
frustration, but I think it could have been handled.
Stop
I
emailing
agree.
people. Just go
Okay.
have lunch,
There's-
talk, and be good.
Final thought.
there's a
Mafia
super
way.
interesting thing out there, which is the Chinese cinema market and the larger Asian market for cinema is enormous, and they sometimes even release the films abroad before they do them over here. And what's interesting is you have people like Ridley Scott, who did one of those movies that cast a white person to play someone who obviously shouldn't have been white. And he says, like, listen, I gotta sell tickets. And what's interesting is in a lot of Asian markets, they want Tom Cruise. Because Tom Cruise is a big American star and they want him there. I think the key is in creating stars here that have credibility overseas, take into consideration that it doesn't have to start out being Tom Cruise. It can be the other person and get them to be that big American star that they want
Right.
to see in the films.
That's a good point.
But
It's
it's
a
through doing
process.
stuff like this where
Right.
you write the character different and you change some things that you typically would see in Hollywood to something unexpected but still good, because
Right.
these people are super creative and really good at what they do. If they just use their powers for good.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it was a good conversation, and like you said, I really hope that you guys read the emails. We'll include the link, and we'll see you next time on Pop Sugar.